Welcome back to our Bible Short series on tithing. This is part 3, and today we're shifting from the Old Testament to the New Testament to see what Jesus and the early church taught about giving. A lot of people assume tithing continues into the New Testament, but when we look closely, the Bible shows a big change. Jesus never commanded his followers to tithe. The few times he mentions tithing, like in Matthew chapter 23, verse 23, he's talking to the Pharisees, who were still under the Old Covenant and the temple system. He tells them they tithe even tiny herbs, but neglect justice, mercy, and faithfulness. Jesus says they should have practiced the more important things, not just focus on ritual. After Jesus' death and resurrection, the temple was destroyed in 70 A.D. The Levitical priesthood ended. The whole system that supported Old Testament tithing was gone. So what took its place? In the New Testament, giving is no longer tied to a required percentage. Instead, it's about the heart. One of the clearest teachings is found in 2 Corinthians chapter 9, verse 7, where Paul says, "Each one must give as he has decided in his heart, not reluctantly or under compulsion, for God loves a cheerful giver." Let that sink in, not reluctantly, not under compulsion. Giving is now voluntary, thoughtful, and joyful. There is no fixed rule, no 10% requirement. It's based on what you decide in your heart with prayer and faith. In Acts chapter 2 and chapter 4, we see early believers selling property and possessions and giving to anyone who had need. That wasn't tithing, it was radical generosity. And it wasn't forced. Paul also tells the Corinthians to give in proportion to their income. In 1 Corinthians chapter 16, verse 2, he says to give as he may prosper. That means if you earn more, you may give more. If you earn less, you're not expected to give what you don't have. It's flexible, not rigid. What about supporting pastors or churches? Paul addresses that too. In 1 Timothy chapter 5, he says that elders who teach and lead well are worthy of double honor. And he quotes the Old Testament saying, "The laborer deserves his wages." So supporting church leaders is biblical. But again, there's no demand for a tithe. Some people use Hebrews chapter 7, where Abraham gives a tenth to Melchizedek, to argue that tithing still applies. But that chapter is making a theological point about Jesus being our high priest, not setting a rule about money. There's no command in Hebrews for Christians to tithe. Giving under the new covenant is about your heart, your love for God, and your desire to help others. Whether you give 5%, 10%, or 50%, what matters is that you give with joy, not pressure.